Metal Gear Survive is looming on the horizon as its February 20th, 2018 release date nears, and it still remains as polarizing as ever. The game recently hosted an open beta that ran from January 18th to January 21st for the public to try out, and before that, Konami invited various news outlets to try out the game's single-player campaign. Impressions so far have been mixed. While few disagree that Metal Gear Survive is mechanically solid, in large part because it's built upon Phantom Pain's polished foundation, the general sentiment seems to be that the game is fairly unremarkable. It's not that it can't be fun, but few have expressed that it stands out from the competition in any particular way. It's a jack of a handful of trades, but a master of none. And yeah, I pretty much agree with these sentiments from the 3 hours I played of the beta. To me, the game feels like a bunch of things thrown together in a way that doesn't always mesh. It's got the stealth and shooting mechanics of Metal Gear Solid 5, the survival elements of something like DayZ, the objectives of a zombie horde shooter like Left 4 Dead, the tower defense and base building mechanics of a game like Fortnite, and the resource gathering, crafting, and upgrade systems of a game like Monster Hunter. While these aspects are functional on their own, when you see it all come together, it's easy to spot the seams. Stealth in particular I found to be practically useless in the game, as it's simply easier to run past zombies or shoot them instead of carefully engaging them. Not to mention that Survive doesn't do anything that other games don't already do better. All in all, Metal Gear Survive isn't bad or even boring per se, just unremarkable and generic in its concept and often clumsy in execution. And as a Metal Gear game, Survive is a travesty that doesn't deserve the Metal Gear name attached to it. As I've said before, Survive could have easily been its own thing, but Konami took advantage of the Metal Gear name, knowing the value of the brand. There was no artistic consideration whatsoever involved in turning this into a Metal Gear spin-off. Now, as if the game wasn't hated enough by the general public, it also recently came to light that Metal Gear Survive will feature microtransactions. Players can purchase with real money what are called Survive coins, which they spend to, quote, obtain special items and privileges. Among those items and privileges are premium boost passes that will boost acquisition of various resources. While I wouldn't say that these microtransactions are pay to win by any means, they do have measurable gameplay effects. Unsurprisingly, backlash was swift and immediate, or perhaps it's more accurate to say that apathy for this game grew even further. Now, the microtransactions discussion was seemingly something that Metal Gear Survive producer Yuji Korikato and interviewers from official PlayStation Magazine UK expected. Talking to the news outlet, when asked about Survive's microtransactions, Yuji stated that, quote, there will be no loot boxes and there will be no pay-to-win types of microtransactions. There will be things like accessories in Metal Gear Online and forward operating bases in Metal Gear Solid 5 The Phantom Pain. Now, whether this holds true in the long term remains to be seen. Keep in mind that it's not that rare of an occurrence these days for a publisher and developer to promise that a game won't have predatory monetization schemes before later implementing them down the line. The fact of the matter is that the inclusion of any form of microtransactions always leaves the door open for things like loot boxes to be added later on. It may not happen at launch or even a few months down the line, but the developer can choose to pull the trigger at any point. So despite Yuji's statement, forgive me if I don't feel fully confident that this is where it stops, that they won't try to push the boundaries down the line, especially considering Konami's past history and proclivities. It's just kind of baffling to me that despite the uphill battle Metal Gear Survive faces, they would still shoot themselves in the foot by including microtransactions and further fueling the game's stigmatization. Speaking of which, Yuji Korikato also briefly spoke about the overall negative feedback surrounding Metal Gear Survive, stating, quote, fans and gamers in general seemed to take Metal Gear Survive to be a continuation of the Metal Gear series, so I regret that we caused that confusion. Let's get one thing straight, nobody actually thinks or perceives that Metal Gear Survive is in any way, shape, or form the next canonical entry in the Metal Gear series. There is no confusion there. What does have people riled up is that Metal Gear Survive isn't even a spin-off, it's just an ill-conceived piece of fan fiction. It's got the Metal Gear coat of paint, but nothing about this game is Metal Gear, so to brand it as such, especially considering the current state of the series, is an insult. The fact that they considered using the Metal Gear name in such a generic and unremarkable way goes to show where Konami's priorities lie. It feels less like they're trying to take Metal Gear into a new direction, and more like they're taking advantage of the brand's prestige to make a quick buck. After all, it's much easier and less costly to just repurpose some assets from Phantom Pain and make a zombie shooter mod than it is to build a thoughtful new game with fresh ideas from the ground up. The fact that the first two things Konami did with Metal Gear following Kojima's departure was to shoehorn the name into pachinkos and then shoehorn the name into this zombie shooter that is only Metal Gear in its game engine and assets should tell you everything you need to know about the kind of future we can expect. This wouldn't be the first time something like this happens either. Once renowned franchises like Castlevania and Silent Hill have never been the same since key developers for those franchises left and Konami took over. So yeah, I don't give a damn that Metal Gear Survive is being advertised as a spin-off. It's still just an insulting way to exploit a name that someone else passionately established and built up from the ground up, and it foreshadows a dark future for a once beloved series. These are just one man's thoughts and opinions anyway. I'd love to hear what you think about all this in the comments below. With that, I would like to end this news update. Thank you for tuning in. If you enjoy my content, consider supporting me on Patreon. It is completely optional, but it will go a long way in helping this channel grow. And to be further updated on all things gaming news, reviews, and discussions, stay tuned right here on Young Yeah. I'll see you guys next time. Young out.